Hey folks, I'm totally not named Dan, though you can call me that if you want. And I know I promised you all an update video on the new mulligans and various other recent rule changes would be my next video. But unfortunately, some other stuff has come up in the meantime that I feel needs to be addressed right away. So I'm going to have to put that off to the next one. It is in the works though. I've recorded it. I'm midway through editing it. You will see it soon. For now, I'm going to bring in my buddy Jotakumon, and then he can tell you a bit about what's been going on.
Hey, it's me, Jota. And as a Tokoyami player, I'm quite interested in what we're talking about today.
Yes, because there have been some bans following nationals, and they've hit Tokoyami a lot.
Deservedly, to be fair.
Well, yes and no. It's kind of funny to me that they've specifically hit Tokoyami after I faced 3 Tokoyamis in nationals and went 2-0 against every single one of them.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I guess your deck is hit as well, which is unfortunate given that you just came up with the idea. That
Yep.
is what I don't like about these bans at times, that they hit a specific archetype really hard, but then other things can't explore with these cards anymore. But we'll see.
Yeah, so first ban we have is Crow and Frog Takedown, which is an incredibly powerful card. Yeah, it's a 5 diff. Yeah, it doesn't do too much on its own, at least in most characters. But it's incredibly free because as long as you can use the enhance, as long as nobody gives it flash, it doesn't count towards progressive.
Yeah, which is incredible in
Yeah,
Tokoyami.
yeah, in my deck especially, so outside of Tokoyami, I was going through so much of it that I would regularly see 3 in a turn. And that's 3 attacks, all on a 5, all don't count towards progressive. So
hmm
your 4th card of the turn can be on a 4. No problem.
Yep.
And it's just the
And
fact that, I mean, you can go 6 attacks deep and still be checking a 6 just off the top of your deck, not have to commit anything.
yeah, it is in fact so good, that first enhance, that oftentimes I wouldn't even play the second enhance and wouldn't be too bummed about it. As long as I can make sure that it doesn't count as progressive, everything's good.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I was using this in Tsuyu maybe, but only after the previous bans to make up for the lack of Amphibious, because it gave more ready foundations.
hmm
Outside of that, I was finding it a lot more useful in things like True Form All Might because it gives him access to way more attacks in a turn with way fewer foundations. Just off that doesn't count towards progressive. He can't even use the second enhance because he doesn't have the right name, and it does not matter.
Yep.
This card is incredibly free, and the decks that want it really want it.
Yeah, this is the card which I find hardest to replace in the Tokoyami thing. I guess we have Twisting Azure Inferno, which does something similar, but it is quite a big hit. It is quite a big hit to the deck.
Yeah, people
Because,
asked me what I was going to replace this with in my All Might deck, and just the only card that does anything even remotely similar. Well, there's 2. One of them is Invisible Infiltration, which is already in the deck because it's insane. And the other one is Hardened Jab, which is kind of just worse Invisible Infiltration.
Hardened Jab, is that the one that builds the foundation,
Yeah,
or
it
what
makes you
is
pick
what?
up a face down if
Oh,
you
yeah.
have one, and then you build one. So if you don't have one, you just build one for free. And worst comes to the worst, you get to ready one.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That is pretty good. Or you get to pick up an attack that you committed that was already in your stage.
Yeah,
Face
yeah,
down.
you can pick up a face down attack, but and this is All Might True Form. Generally, he doesn't have those unless somebody's blocked his Hardened Frenzy.
Yeah. Or if Hardened Jab put them in there, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. So yeah, there's that as sort of an alternative. It readies stuff, but it doesn't do the no progressive. It doesn't help anywhere near as much when you're going 10 cards deep against Mike Hardiman.
hmm
So,
Yeah. I think this is a fair ban. I think people knew this was happening, right? This was not too much
yeah,
of a
yeah.
surprise. It was just a question of when, not if.
I am
Yeah.
surprised they didn't hit Invisible Infiltration along with it, because Invisible Infiltration was actually even freer, if you ask me, in that deck. But
In that specific deck, yes, but I think it's kind of fair. You use it in an interesting way. I don't think it's breaking the game as much as it is just making your deck viable and really good. And I think that's okay.
I'm unclear on that. Yes, definitely Crow and Frog Takedown does more in other characters. because
Yeah.
other characters don't run the same lack of foundations and then advice for winners
Hmm.
combo. But
Yeah.
it's still real good. It still lets people use the once per turn of various cards multiple times a turn, which is something that other things like, say, Quan Chi, the character from Mortal Kombat, got banned
Hmm.
for.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he notoriously got banned for that twice. He's the only character to have been banned, reprinted with errata, and then banned again.
Yeah, I can see maybe moving forward once we get another set and there's going to be one foundation that is crazy good and people abuse that card in that foundation, but they don't want to ban the foundation. Then I could see them banning it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can see it happening. I'm just thinking for now it's still like in a good spot for me
Yeah.
personally. But then again, I don't have
But
like the same experience with all the stuff from before, so
yeah,
it's hard
yeah.
to compare.
Quan Chi was banned specifically for that. Invisible Infiltration may well get specifically banned for that.
Hmm.
It's similar to what Unwavering Slash did, and Unwavering Slash was definitely banned for that.
Oh, that is true.
But Unwavering Slash was banned because there was lots of powerful stuff to interact with it coming out.
Oh yeah, true.
Invisible Infiltration so far has Small and Limber and Advice for Winners that it really kind of breaks. Everything else, I think it's okay with so far.
Hmm.
In the future, it may well be a banned target, as you say, but for now, it's relatively okay.
Yeah, for now it's like a bit like Cape Guy, where it just unflips basically something and readies it,
Yeah.
which hasn't broken the game yet.
I still feel like it's come close, but no, it's not there yet.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah, yeah.
Whereas, yeah, a Crow and Frog takedown doesn't need any specific interactions. So the Asui slash Tokoyami enhance does want to see things in your stage to ready.
Hmm.
And the things it readies are things like, say, your character card, which in
Yeah.
those characters isn't all that helpful normally. But they
So
recently printed a promo card called Petty Squabble, which lets you commit your character for discard 2, draw 2, which means you can dump your Summon Dark Shadow in the grave to then pick back up with Tokoyami, say.
I have readied the character before with this card, either to pass turn or better yet, not even use its enhance to search a some dark shadow, just so that I check a bunch of cards to mill myself quicker,
Yeah.
then ready the character and then use it, because then I'm more certain to have a some dark shadow in my discard pile. So it came up every now and then, but as you said, it's not like the thing that mostly happens readying the character. I guess it's
Oh.
more of a Asui thing.
But what you are readying specifically is you're readying cards that you can draw.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or cards that
Cards that you can
commit
draw with.
give you speed or damage bonus. You know, things like
Okay, those are good.
yeah,
What you
heroic
really want to
lineage.
do is just see more cards.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And in the lead up to these bans, people were talking about the problem with Tokoyami was that he could see so many cards because he could ready things that would draw.
Yeah.
And the
Well.
problem card people were talking about was that Petty Squabble. Because if
Hmm.
you can Petty Squabble twice in a turn, that's another 4 cards you see, and a couple extra in the trash for when you use your ability.
Hmm.
It is very relevant, the Petty Squabble interaction. There were people saying Petty Squabble was the actual problem card and that that was going to get banned. I'm very glad it didn't, because it has some very silly interactions with Kamui Woods that I really want to explore.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely should be Petty Squabble. I mean, if Petty Squabble's problem is that Crow and Frog Takedown exists, and then Crow and Frog Takedown's problem is that it interacts with too many things and is good in everything, then Crow and Frog Takedown is a problem, not Petty
Yeah,
Squabble.
nothing else readies character to trigger Petty Squabble multiple times, except for characters that are meant to do that.
Yeah, again, I'm not experienced too much with the previous game, but sometimes I hear people give really weird takes on what should be banned or limited, also in other card games, and this is one of them.
I mean, you're saying limited. Limited is a really weird take in this card game in general.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Just because you see so many more cards and you can fish stuff up from discard pile in certain decks, so
Mhm.
it really doesn't matter if you check your one copy. Limiting does not help. And in fact, I would argue limiting does not help in most circumstances. Because limiting only really stops cards being a problem if the cards interact with themselves. Otherwise, it just means they're a problem less often. So you randomly
Yeah,
flip that one ice wall that decides game now,
yeah.
rather than
Well,
people going, oh, they're going to flip ice wall, better play around it.
yeah. In the current meta, it's the HPD. Once you flip it, then you win the game, essentially, with Hydramon.
Oh, yeah, yeah, because Hidden Potential Discovered wasn't banned, it was just limited. Why did
Yeah,
they do that, Digimon?
Bandai.
When that card can be a 4 of, people expect it. When it's a one of, it just shows up very rarely, and when it does, it still decides games. So if anything, it's more of a problem.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm not a big fan of limiting cards. There are certain cards where the card interacts with itself, where limiting it stops interactions and makes it
Yeah.
fairer. But most
Yeah.
cards, that is not the case, and so limiting is not helpful.
Like Doro Greymon, I guess, is a good example of that. You can evolve into it and then put itself underneath to have the double effect, which is just annoying.
Right, if that double effect is the problem, then yeah, limiting it stops that.
It's part of the problem. It's just there's so much going on in there, but we can't get into it. It's a My Hero video.
Well, I mean, the limiting is relevant still.
Yeah.
That's the important part of this, is seeing what effects this has had on other games and why that doesn't work for this game.
hmm
And arguably doesn't work for those either.
Fair enough, yeah. I still think Ice Wall is a good example of where limited kind of works, because you have that one-off and you have to think when are you using it. Even if you have it in hand, it's like still a choice you have to make to play it right. And you can't play two of them because that is absolutely broken.
Oh no, if you have it in hand, sure. It's just the fact that it's not specifically just in hand. You can just
Mhm.
randomly flip that over and win game because of it.
Oh yeah, of course.
Anyway, the next ban we have here is Stronger in Darkness. The reason given is that it only works for a small portion of characters, but it's simply too strong for its low risk of play, which basically is saying that similarly to Amphibious, this doesn't do anything busted, it just does it way too freely. Amphibious was basically 3 foundations, or at least 2.5. But 2.5 foundations on a 3 diff would be fine. 2.5 foundations on a 2 diff would be pushing it, but if it did nothing else, possibly still fine. On a 0 diff, it was stupid and an auto-include on symbols, pretty much.
Yeah, I was surprised when I first saw this until I thought about it and then realized this makes so much sense.
Yeah, Stronger in Darkness isn't an auto-include on its symbols, but it's very much an auto-include in decks where the character ends up committed anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's just no cost whatsoever if your character's committed. So all your attacks get +1 just by definition. And that's
Yeah.
kind of odd for a zero cost.
And just +1 is
foundation.
fine, but it's a 0 diff, so you will quite
Yeah.
often be able to play multiple copies of it on your first turn. And once it's just +2 to
Exactly.
every attack, that's changing the game a lot.
Exactly, yeah. And in Tokoyami, that's like +2 plus one of the characters as well.
Yeah, I can see exactly why this was seen as a problem card and why it was hit. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it is not what it does that's the problem. It is the stats.
If it was like once per turn, I would think the zero diff would be okay, and that would make sense to me. Which
Yeah,
would be
but
like
if it was once per turn, it would be basic training and it would be basically
Yeah.
useless.
exactly, it would be basic training. I previously said that I was wondering why they didn't just errata it and made it a once per turn because it's just a essential card in Tokoyami. But
So,
then I realized we do have basic training, so it doesn't really matter.
yeah. But the other thing with that, though, is that means putting errata on a card, which they really do not like doing on anything other than characters.
Mhm.
If they're going
Okay.
to errata this, they will do it via what's known as an MRP, or a most recent printing errata, where basically they print a new card named Stronger in Darkness that is this but errated.
Yeah, you mentioned that before in the Discord. Yeah.
Yeah. So that might happen in a future set. We might see Stronger in Darkness come back, but say as a 1/4. That I think would help it a lot.
hmm
And maybe even as a 2 diff. As a 2 diff, though, it becomes comparable to things like bench press or making a stand that they mention in the text here, or
Yeah.
homage to My Hero, which
Oh.
Kirishima uses a lot, and you'll notice that has also draw a card on its face, which is very useful and definitely worth more than just the damage conditionally.
Mm.
All of
Oh
those
yeah.
make you jump through hoops to activate them, but arguably so does Stronger in Darkness. So I think at a 2 diff, it would be comparable to those and probably want a second ability to make it actually worth playing.
Yeah. It is similar to Revel as its masterpiece. Well, you have to pay a cost for Revel. It's discard top card and then you gain +1 damage, 2 diff. But I guess having a second enhance or response, if it becomes a 2 cost, would be nice as well.
Hmm. The other thing that I think would be really interesting, which I know they won't do, is when you have 2 of this out, over the course of 3 attacks, which Tokoyami can very easily play, this becomes an extra 6 damage. it is basically an extra attack in his deck, right? But what if we made it check a 3? Just keep it a 0 diff, make it check a 2 or a 3. That would probably also be fair.
Hmm.
They won't do it because that means a foundation that checks like an attack. But it has been a solution in the very distant history of the game, and it would be interesting to see come back.
Yeah, I'm not sure if a 3 is enough because you can easily make it a 6. But yeah, a 2 check, that's. I mean, it's something worth considering. It is odd though, 0 diff 2 check.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a very weird card.
I think people would
But,
just not play it in that case. Would they?
well, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. Because it would still be a 0 diff foundation. It would be very playable. And then once it comes down, it's out your deck.
Hmm.
But it is still worrying that you could possibly check a 2 in that deck. It would be very much a decision in a way that it isn't now.
Yeah, I can see it maybe. I feel like when I play Tokoyami, one of the upsides is that I don't have to worry too much about my checks. And having it in 2 check would make me rethink a lot. You know, probably would prefer just not having it in there. Or maybe just having 2 of them. Yeah, actually, yeah.
Well, thinking a lot is also kind of what they want, because they're sort of saying here the problem with him is that he just goes in so fast, does 1 turn and kills.
Yeah.
Right?
And you don't have to think about it at all.
Yeah.
It's very brain dead.
It's a very straightforward deck. I mean, my All Might deck was also pretty brain dead because it was just play the cards in the order that it tells you to play them and play out your entire hand. But the one interesting thing with that was knowing which Tokoyami attacks to block, because it did matter. Because if you partial a Tokoyami attack, you can take 6 damage out of it.
Yeah.
And you do that once or twice, and then you have 27 health if you're going second. You can survive his attack turn, and then the backswing's just ridiculous.
Yeah, because oftentimes they're just completely committed, no cards in hand.
Well, in my experience, they did have cards in hand. They would block 1 or 2, but you play 6 attacks in a turn. It doesn't matter.
With your deck, yeah, it doesn't matter how many foundations cards in hands they have. They will not be able to block everything. That's just part of being a 20 health character.
Yeah. That's the thing. Tokoyami is hyper aggro, and by being hyper aggro, he's big risk. My All Might deck was also hyper aggro. The difference was the All Might deck lost health over time, so it got to have a bit more starting off, which means in matchups like the hyper aggro versus hyper aggro matchup against that Tokoyami, it was definitely advantageous for the true form. But in decks that go a long game, it is a bit more of a struggle if they can survive that early kill turn. Yeah, Stronger in Darkness, the effect itself is not the problem. It is very much the stats. And so if we could see a reprint of this with the stats adjusted, that would be wonderful. Please make that happen, Jasko.
I'm wondering now what will happen to Tokoyami going forward. Having 2 things banned is kind of rough.
It's extremely rough for him.
It can go without Strong in Darkness, I believe. It's like the stats are a bit lower. You have less damage, which is important. But with Crow and Frog takedown, it's just you don't have your play anymore, your combo that you can do that easily, where you can just chain 4 or 5 attacks in a turn.
I see what you're saying, but at the same time, I rarely see more than sort of 3 or 4 from a Tokoyami anyway. So I don't know if Crow and Frog takedown's necessary when every attack is swinging for 11 plus.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But you do want to finish in 1 turn, you know, that's...
Yeah. Absolutely. It's going to hurt, but you've still got your Dark Shadow Ruin, which is your real big deal.
Yeah.
And you've still got the character unchanged. I think Tokoyami is still playable. He's just not what he was.
Yeah, he's playable. Yeah, definitely. But how good will he be? I'm really wondering. Yeah.
He'll still be in the meta. He'll still be at events, but he won't be half the event anymore.
Okay, yeah. I can see that, yeah.
And finally, we've got Errata to Kirishima 2. You know, similar to Kirishima 1. He did very similar things. He felt like an errated version of Kirishima 1 more than his own character. Now they've errated him. His first enhance, which was originally enhanced twice per turn, is now enhanced once per turn. It's still destroy 1 foundation, build 1 card from your hand face down, draw 1 card, your attack gets +2 damage. So he's still essentially a 7-hander as long as he's got a foundation down, but he no longer gets to be an 8-hander. He no longer gets to ready 2 things. I mean, he still kind of does, because he gets to do this on both his turn and the opponent's turn, but he doesn't get to do it twice on each.
I think this is a good errata. Playing against him was a lot of fun, but also quite frustrating. The ability to have like 4 ready foundations in one cycle, like your turn and your opponent's turn, and it's just keep drawing into cards as well to be able to block, makes it really, really hard to get through him.
And you
with any
say
deck with
to be
enemy.
able to block. He didn't even need to block. He has his response commit.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. So you can draw into 2 cards to block and then block with his response commit, which is just insane.
I mean, he wasn't the most annoying character in the game by any
No,
means.
definitely,
I have
definitely.
definitely fought worse, but
Yeah,
at the same
yeah.
time, I mean, he was just annoying more than anything. I don't think he was even as ridiculously strong as people made him out to be. He was real good, but I don't think he was necessarily ban worthy. People have said he lost to Fourth Kind pretty consistently,
Mhm.
which, if true, is interesting because Fourth Kind lost to Moneta pretty consistently. So there seems to be sort of a rock, paper, scissors going on there.
I'm a little bit surprised about the bad because yeah, I played against him and I thought it was still fun. I didn't feel it was like playing against Tokoyami where, well, you don't play the game. They just draw into perfect hands and then they win. That's it. And if they don't, then maybe you get the win. This felt more like a reasonably strong character. I
I find
understand
that
why.
interesting because a lot of people refer to Kirishima as what we call NPE, or a negative player experience.
Oh, okay.
Specifically because if you play Kirishima, you get to look at all the things, loop all the things, do cool stuff, right?
Mhm.
If you play against Kirishima, you see a face down go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and then get one big attack and they just say no.
I can see that, yeah.
So the experience playing against Kirishima 2 is a lot more depressing than the experience playing Kirishima 2. It is not very symmetrical.
Okay, see what happened. The deck that I played against Kirishima was a deck that wouldn't do one big move. It would do like a few little attacks. And I think that helped a lot.
Yeah, that does. I'm What I saw at this event was interesting because we actually had a Ochako 1 in top
Hmm.
8. That Ochako had 1.3 million volts as a card, which was big damage based on the opponent committing stuff. And it had Home Run Comet, which was very much another way of getting big damage. But most of its attacks were lots of small chips. They were not huge damage. So it
Hmm.
feels like maybe the meta was headed that way a little bit anyway, which, if so, is kind of cool to see again.
Yeah, I do like that. I do prefer the small chips because it makes the game longer. I sometimes a bit disappointed, even when I play Tokoyami, when the game's just over in 1 or 2 turns. And last time it was, in fact, yeah, it was against Kirishima when I played, I think with Selkie, and the game lasted like 4, 5, 6, maybe more turns. I don't remember how long it was, but like I almost milled myself. That's how long it took.
I mean, on the
These games
grounds
I
of
found.
that, hey, I cycled twice when playing a turn in my All Might deck, which was ridiculous. And literally, I just went, right, play out my entire hand, play the price for peace, play out half my new hand, play the price for peace. Oh, I've just removed 20 cards from the game. Oops.
And how did that game go?
Oh, I won that game, but there was like 10 cards left in my deck or something.
Oh wow, that would be the last cycle then, I guess, right?
Yeah,
If you cycle
yeah.
then, that would be game.
So
That's
that
the
was quite
that's the thing.
ridiculous.
That was
But
thematically very, very fitting, though.
oh, yeah. Well, it was also the last turn anyway, because the price for peace says if you don't win, you lose.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, but then, like, even you attacking might make you lose because you mill yourself, which is also
Yeah. So you can
sometimes
have some
what
really,
all does.
really long turns just going one turn. Getting back to this, I think Kirishima's fine like this. Yeah, it's going to hurt him a lot, but again, he was another meta dominant character. And I don't think he was the most powerful by any means, but I think he was still strong enough that, even with once per turn, he's going to be viable.
Hmm.
I think what's actually going to hurt him is the fact that he can't put +2 damage on things multiple times. Because I think being able to only ready once and only draw once each turn is perfectly reasonable. I think it's
Oh
literally
yeah,
just he needs more damage.
I almost forgot that damage boosting part. Just focus on the
Yeah.
building and the drawing.
Well, it's because it's just such a string of effects, right?
Yeah,
When you play it, it all works logically. But when you just look at it as text, it's do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And it's just silly as text. You do forget bits of it. And that +2 damage, it's not the most memorable part, but I think it does matter to him. And he is going
yeah,
to have to find new ways to get his damage in.
yeah. It doesn't feel like a very important part because the whole Kirishima thing is like building foundations and being able to block a lot, from my understanding. But I think it's one of those things you will miss when you don't have it, because you don't think about the +2 damage as being relevant, but over the course of the game, that's not +2 damage. That's possibly like 10, 12 damage extra you do with a bunch of attacks.
Yeah, exactly. And he is very much a defensive character who needs his attacks to count when they hit.
Yeah. I assume most people play him on Earth, do they?
I believe so.
Yeah, that would make sense with all the foundation building.
Fire is an interesting one for him because fire's so aggro, and he's definitely not that.
That's what I was thinking, because fire might have some things to help him boost up his damage, but that's not really the symbol that many people play him on, I believe.
It might be interesting to see if people do play him on fire now. But yeah, this is far less lethal errata than the errata to Kirishima 1, who became basically unplayable.
Hmm.
And I'm finding Kirishima 1 very interesting, though, because one of my friends has recently sent me a Kirishima 1 list that I've got to try out, because if it works as well as they think it works, we may actually have a viable Kirishima 1 again, which is wild to me with how nerfed he was.
The Kirishima one was only the second enhance, which got once per turn.
Oh, it was both enhances got errated. The top one got turned to your turn, which halved the amount he could use it. The bottom one got changed to once per turn, which again halved the amount he could use it. And to be fair, the first one was just a free build, no restrictions, which is kind of insane. So limiting that was good. And then second one, yeah, kind of needed to not just -2 damage every opponent attack and +2 damage every one of his own.
Yeah, but if you use it the second time, you lose a foundation that you couldn't build with his character.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, I didn't play much against him because I think he got errata very early, didn't he?
Yeah, I tried to play him online post errata just to see if he was still viable, and he was just losing to the worst decks that random people threw together, so...
Yeah, it's just funny because the second Kirishima looks like them trying the same thing kind of again.
Yeah.
But more balanced, and they still didn't manage to do that according to themselves. So we'll get a Kirishima 3 maybe at some point.
I'm finding it very interesting that Kirishima 1 is now using Seizing the Advantage and looping that.
Oh yeah.
Because that builds a foundation, which means it then makes up for him going -1. And he gets to pick it back up every time and flip a rival foundation every time.
Yeah, see, that's a card I was expecting to be banned.
Yeah, so many people love Seizing the Advantage, and it's so hard to get hold of that, yeah, banning it would definitely change the meta and also change the pay-to-win element of the meta that's supposedly been going on with cards like this.
In fact, I recently ordered cards from the loyalty points shop, and I didn't order 4 Seasons of the Advantage, just like 2 of them, because I was expecting it to be banned once it arrives. It's just such a good card. It's crazy.
That said, we do have the Plus Ultra promos here now for set 3, so you will probably see Seizing the Advantage in an event reward at some point in the not-too-distant future. You will be able to get hold of it, so just having 2 for now and then upping it as you get it probably does make sense.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah. Is this usually something you play 4 of, though? Given that it's like an action. I mean, it's a really good action. It's an action foundation, essentially, but...
Generally, I play anywhere up to 6 actions in a deck. More than that, and it becomes a problem, because then you don't have enough foundations or attacks. But as you say, this doubles as a foundation, at least on your attack turns. So as long as you're lowering the difficulty of your attacks accordingly, this may well actually make up for having a lower foundation count. It may even let you go to 8 actions in the deck without problem, possibly even 10.
Okay, Fire Tokoyami is good again then.
This is your replacement for Crow and Frog, is it?
No, I'm trying to play the Chaos version. This I probably would try playing in Jiro. Want to play Jiro again, so this could be interesting. Just up the speed a little bit of a first attack and put this back as a foundation. Just seems nice.
Yeah, the downside is you go -1 in hand for it. But you do get to flip your choice of the opponent's foundations, turn off anything that stops you.
I would probably replace foundations with it then, because it's just like having a foundation in hand, you know, that you play first.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's just a foundation. Carpool, this attack gets +2 speed. That's it.
Yeah. But you play it on your attack turn rather than earlier.
And you flip rival's foundation. I forgot about that bit, which makes it really, really strong.
Yeah, it's the targeted nature of the flip. If your opponent flipped 1 foundation, this wouldn't be that great. But it's the fact that you can pick anything.
That's really good, yeah. Definitely 2 of them maybe in my Jiro deck. Replace 2 foundations. Seems reasonable. It's just bad on your first turn, because then you can't play it as a foundation.
Yes. I think that's it for this ban list discussion, though. I think we're good. Catch you again next time, where we will go over the mulligan rules. Bye.
Bye, everyone.